Chapter 13. Prince Andrei is making his way back to the army. He's looking for Kutuzov, and he's heading up the road, and he sees the Russian army retreating and in just complete disarray. It's kind of a chaotic mob of people moving up the road, and he's just come from this kind of emotional roller coaster of coming from the Russian victory to the Austrians, sort of being disappointed with his reception there. Then he hears that Napoleon has crossed this river and the Russian lines of communication are being threatened, and he feels the urgency to rush back, and he faces this army just retreating in disarray. And so I think this is a bit of a shock for him, and he's looking for Kutuzov and where they are, the headquarters are. And on his travels, he meets up with this woman, the wife of this doctor, traveling with this soldier. The soldiers, they kind of rigged this carriage, and there's this other officer there who's in a drunken rage of sorts. He thinks that this soldier is just trying to skip ahead and get ahead of the other soldiers retreating and taking advantage of pretending he's taking care of this woman. But this officer, he's just sort of part of this mob mentality, and he feels he has some authority, and so he starts whipping this soldier, and the woman screams out, and Prince Andrei instinctively comes to her aid, and he has this confrontation. And you can just, to me, there's this heightened emotion. You know, he sees this ragged army. It's kind of a ragged situation. There's this woman in distress. He's trying to come to his aid. He's in conflict with this officer who won't let them pass, and it's just kind of escalating. And he hears from the crowd some jeering about how the officer's confronting him, and that kind of puts him off, as well as another emotional ingredient of sort of in confrontation with this fellow and who will win, and he ends up coming to the woman's aid, and they let her pass. And so there's just this kind of strainful, heightened context for all this that's going on. And eventually, and so actually I think this is actually not insignificant. I don't want to, there is a bit there where it speaks of, you know, one of his main emotions is to be disrespected or to face ridicule regarding Prince Andrei. And this is true of all of us. And it's just combined in this bit of a strainful context. And eventually he finds the headquarters. He sees, I think it's Nedvitsky, is it? Or who is it? No, it's, Nesvitsky. Nedvitsky sees him on the road, and he calls to him, and they meet, and like, where are we? Is there a capitulation? Are there peace talks? And no one really knows. And he finally gets from Nesvitsky where Kutuzov is, and he makes his way there. And this is to me the most interesting interaction of the chapter between Kutuzov and Andrei. Kutuzov is in this meeting with Bagration, and he's going to send Bagration back to confront Napoleon as kind of a rearguard action, just to protect the mass of the army retreating. And the whole thing is like it's a lost cause. It's just to somehow slow Napoleon down a bit. And Kutuzov himself figures, you know, if just even the smallest fraction of these men come back alive, that will be kind of a miracle. And Andrei's witnessing all this, and very interested in this interaction between Andrei and Kutuzov, and how Andrei is observing Kutuzov. And again, I'm just thinking, this is sort of the father figure that Andrei needs. And you just wonder, under this influence, whether he would be able to come to greater self-realization sooner. And so Kutuzov is parting with Bagration. He's kind of even tearful, and he's giving him his blessing. This is after they've made plans to send Bagration back. And Kutuzov, gives him a hug, he blesses them, and he's even tearful about it. And Prince Andrei wants to stay, but Kutuzov says, come with me. And Prince Andrei doesn't want to. And it says here, there's still much before us. A great deal lies ahead, he said, as if with an old man's perspicacity, he understood what was going on in Bolkonsky's soul. So this old man's, in this English translation, use this word perspicacity. I mean, it's just talking about just being able to take in multitude of angles of information at once and immediately perceiving what's going on. Here is the leader of the army, and Andrei sees the skill of this man, and he's able to take the chaos of it, the tearfulness of it, being sort of obligated to send this Bagration to fight this sort of lost cause thing, but just to protect the rest of the army, and kind of holding within him the responsibility of all these men who are going to get killed. And Prince Andrei sees this in him. And Kutuzov says, if 1/10 of his detachment gets there tomorrow, I shall thank God, he added, as if speaking to himself. And I think he's talking about Bagration's group. Prince Andrei glanced at Kutuzov's face and involuntarily noticed the empty eye socket and the well-washed grooves of the scar near the temple where, at Ismail, a bullet had pierced his skull. Yes, he thought, he has the right to speak so calmly of the loss of those men. So here's a person, Prince Andrei would seemingly not accept this as for anyone else. Like if this was Bilibin or Ippolit or, any of the other adjutants he's with, this sort of, in Prince Andrei's mind, there's this seriousness to it of which needs to be met with a serious sort of urgency. And this is the whole kind of cycle of his brain and his life, searching for some peaceful resolution that he doesn't see, but in this model of Kutuzov, he sees it. Here is the man amongst all possible men who should bear the brunt and the weight and the stress and the chaos of everything that's going on. And yet he speaks calmly of the whole situation and even of Bagration. And he knows this is not just a brushed aside calmness. This is not a surface level judgment of the whole thing. And Prince Andrei sees this being modeled in him. And so to me, this is sort of like the one person modeling to Prince Andrei sort of a resolution. In the ultimate example of a situation, they're at war, people are dying, he's sending soldiers to their death, the chaos of the army coming up, retreating just in total disarray. And Kutuzov is both emotional, he's tearful, there's a gravity to the situation, and yet he easily chooses as well. He's not immobile from choosing. It's his responsibility to make these decisions, to send Bagration off and to go on. And just just this whole kind of mix of emotion. It doesn't in any way discount the gravity of the thing, which is the very thing Prince Andrei is sort of struggling with personally, the gravity of life and finding some significance in it. And here he sees in Kutuzov someone doing this, but I would almost say in a very chill demeanor, meaning not in a way insulting to the circumstance. And he tells Kutuzov, you know, Bagration has to stay back and face Napoleon, and this is the very reason I want to stay with him. I want to be in the mix. And Kutuzov says, well, I need good men too. And so there's this one, it's almost, maybe I'm reading too much in between the lines. Andrei, one resolution might be death. You know, it's sort of a consciously or unconsciously an acceptance of being put in harm's way, and maybe I will get killed, and if so, then that's fine. That seems like one possible resolution to my troubles that I've been thinking of. 5 minutes later, he turned to Prince Andrei. There was not a trace of agitation on his face, and with delicate irony, he questioned him about the details of his interview with the emperor, about comments he had heard at court concerning the Kremlin's engagement, and about certain ladies of their acquaintance. I really like Kutuzov here. He seems to be modeling being able to hold multiple things at once and not it becoming overwhelming, of which many young and old people struggle to do, and it's certainly something Andrei's struggling to do. In Andrei's mind, it's a zero-sum game of sort of just the normalness of life. For example, living at home at Bald Hills with his wife and just going about life. And also at the same time having deep philosophical thoughts and questions about life. These things need not be a zero-sum game, but as it is often happens in the human mind, we tend to categorize and name, and by extension, this naturally excludes. And in the exclusion, there's conflict. But in Kutuzov, here's a person that is embracing all of these things within himself and yet finding a calmness. And anyway, this stands out to me. I really like Kutuzov. I'm really cheering for Andrei. You can see even in his defense of that woman, there's something there. It's like the ceiling of Andrei's capacity is higher than, say, for example, Bilibin or Ippolit or one of those. You know, he may outwardly sort of be, if you compare him to those, he's sort of outwardly the one kind of doing his own thing and maybe struggling with life more, but I think this is actually indicative of sort of a higher capacity within him. And I see a lot of Andrei in me, and so I'm just naturally inclined to cheer him on as I kind of think about this story. But really like this interaction between Kutuzov and Andrei.